This killer claims to have an IQ of over 150.
It can be exculpatory for you, meaning that it excludes you as a suspect.
I know, my vernacular is very good.
He's unaware that he is about to demonstrate precisely what one should avoid doing during a police interrogation.
That was a guy that goes by Memphis. It's a nickname. I think his first name's Joe. Black guy.
In February 2019, David Wright and his friend Chris Phelps went on a drug deal, which turned out to be a setup for a robbery. David demanded the buyer's belongings and fired a shot, killing Raul Cuadros instantly. Despite burying the revolver and feeling confident they wouldn't be caught, multiple cameras identified them. David was arrested 2 days later, still believing his intelligence would get him off the hook. However, he was mistaken, underestimating the power of police technology. The officer explained that although some information had already been reported in the media and some individuals had been arrested, they still didn't know much more. Each party involved had a different piece of the puzzle, and they were unlikely to get the complete truth from everyone. The officer then asked the suspect to provide their account of what happened. The suspect claimed to have just heard about the incident and had no clue what had occurred. However, the officer informed the suspect that he had been identified by several people and on video, and that it was not a matter of whether he was there, but rather what had led up to the incident. The officer suggested that what had happened was not what was intended, to which the suspect claimed he had not been there. David was caught on CCTV and had no alibi, and incriminating Facebook messages were found. So naturally, the detective wants to know what happened, but David plans to outsmart them. The officer informs the suspect that it's not in his best interest to remain silent and not provide any information. The officer explains that the other people involved in the case only look out for themselves and will likely blame the suspect for avoiding charges. The suspect denies any involvement in the crime and claims to have spent a week and a half in jail. The officer counters by saying that the GPS on the suspect's phone might tell a different story. The suspect claims that he left his phone in someone's car and let someone else use it to meet up with someone selling something on OfferUp. When the officer asks for more details, the suspect cannot remember the day or the person's name, but refers to him as Memphis. David's alibi is that someone else had his phone during the drug deal, but it's unlikely as it requires them to access his Facebook and change their appearance to match his. An officer interrogates a suspect in a murder case. The officer informs the suspect that all of his co-suspects have been arrested and that there is video evidence from the crime scene. However, the suspect claims he only knows that Chris has been suspended. The officer corrects him and says that Cody and Ray have also been arrested and have evidence from phone messages and Facebook communications linking them to the crime. The officer also warns the suspect that his girlfriend could be charged as an accessory if she provides him with a false alibi. The suspect denies involvement in the murder, but the officer suggests that it could have been accidental due to a sympathetic reflex. The suspect denies this as well. Staying silent and asking for a lawyer is usually the best course of action in an interrogation. Still, despite being linked to it, David's denial of any association with the case is making things worse for himself and others due to his ego. The officer asked the suspect where to go from there and suggested that, as a police officer, he would try to determine if the suspect had any remorse for his actions or was just concerned about getting in trouble. The suspect denied worrying about getting in trouble and claimed he didn't do anything. The officer then presented concrete evidence of the suspect's association with Cody, including phone records and communications. The suspect acknowledged meeting with Cody but denied further involvement, claiming that meeting someone does not necessarily imply wrongdoing. David confirmed meeting with Cody when presented with concrete evidence. This tactic can now extract a full confession from him using other evidence. The officer asks the suspect when he met Cody, who responds that it was around 1 or 2 in the morning on either Saturday or Sunday. The officer then asks where they met, and the suspect says it's near his house. When asked if Cody was alone, the suspect confirmed that he was. The officer questions why the suspect met with someone he didn't know, and the suspect explains that he did it for a friend. The suspect admits that Cody tried to buy a gun from him but denied having one. The officer points out that it's essential information as the suspect met with someone who was later arrested for murder and was seeking a gun. The suspect insists that he didn't give Cody a weapon and didn't see the other person in the car that Cody arrived in. The officer expresses skepticism that the suspect wouldn't have been more cautious in that situation. and suggests that the suspect's distrust of the police makes it hard to believe the evidence against him. The suspect maintains that he's being mistaken for someone else. After 40 minutes, the interview needs to make progress, so the detectives switch tactics and start threatening him with the consequences of his actions on his friends. This conversation seems to be a transcript of a police interrogation with a suspect. The officer tries to get the suspect to confess to a crime, but the suspect denies involvement. The officer accuses the suspect of lying and points out inconsistencies in their story, but the suspect maintains their innocence. The conversation sometimes becomes heated, but ends with the suspect admitting to leaving their house to walk their dog, but denying involvement in the crime. David is caught lying and is becoming uncomfortable as his ego is damaged. The detective needs to keep pushing to get him to reveal more. The officer asked the suspect if he was with anyone at the time of the homicide, to which the suspect replied that he was with another woman, but refused to reveal her identity. The officer explained that it could help prove the suspect's innocence, but he remained hesitant. The officer then asked about the suspect's mode of transportation, and the suspect admitted to riding his bicycle with the woman driving an SUV who gave him a ride home. The officer expressed his desire for honesty and ruled out the suspect's previous statements as lies. The officer then asked for the suspect's whereabouts on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock to gather more information. After an hour in the interrogation room, David finally moves his hand from his lap to adjust his cap. Throughout the interrogation, his writings have been slightly fidgety and he's been stumbling over his words. His ego has been wounded and he's becoming increasingly uneasy. Narcissists like David tend to lash out when provoked to prove their superiority, but in doing so, they often reveal incriminating information to the police. Nevertheless, the detective continues to ask direct, no-nonsense questions to push David to his breaking point. The suspect stated that he usually goes to 7-Eleven and a small Asian market for tubes and tobacco to roll cigarettes, but not very often. The officer asked about his whereabouts on Saturday, to which the suspect replied that he may have gone to 7-Eleven at some point, but did not remember a specific time. The officer pressed for more information, but the suspect stated that he did not feel the need to track his movements and did not have a strict schedule. The officer emphasized the importance of knowing the suspect's whereabouts, especially if he is being charged with murder. The suspect pushed back, stating that his location during the day had no bearing on where he was on Saturday night and Sunday morning. The officer explained that knowing the suspect's whereabouts could help exclude him as a suspect, but the suspect denied any involvement and stated that he did not know what had happened. The officer eventually closed the conversation and ended the tape. The conversation ended as David refused to speak further, opting not to showcase his impressive vocabulary. As a result, he was not successful in court and faced the harshest punishment possible. David was already convicted of arson, burglary, vehicle theft, and numerous misdemeanors in 1999. As a result, he received a 40-year sentence without the chance of parole in October.